you're in Zurich right now, correct?
I'm in Zurich, so I just arrived here last night from Portugal. So I was in Villa Moura first, and then I was in Lisbon. So 10 days trip.
So, what? Give me like the synopsis. What was discussed in Portugal at the double? So, what was that? The double? Would that be like the fall meetings? How did you guys?
Exactly. So we had a council meetings first, and then we had a semi-annual congress with the delegates, and after that I went to our integrity workshops in Lisbon. So we had almost 30 people from different federations
Wow.
who are integrity officers. So we are providing education also for them and instructions how to handle different integrity pillars.
So, give me the 30-second synopsis. What came out of those meetings?
So we had a good workshops in a congress about different topics with the delegates. Just starting discussion and think about how we can improve different things. And then we were, of course, uh, telling them what's going to happen this season. So let's say from my side, I provide what's happening from development wise, and then there was other discussion and votings too. So that was like really 30 seconds. What happens in the congress?
God, well, like what? I'm so curious because obviously the IIHF has the standard stuff. You got to run tournaments, world championships, world juniors. There's rules, etc. But when it comes to when you guys talk in your office about the health of the sport, how do you evaluate that?
That's a good question. How do we evaluate that topic? I think one thing that we need to evaluate how the federations are working, so that we are actually able to help them out. So if there's a connection between us, we know who to reach out. I think that's a first step to evaluate who is the right person to contact with different topics. So I think that would be the one thing. And then after that, if you're able to reach them out, we are able to help them out, and we will see which one of them will actually do something with the information or with our support.
What would be so? I know, like, and I want to get into your schedule because I feel like there's potential. There might be three Kalle Valiahos out there, and we're just talking to one of them because I know you're all over the map. But you know, what would be one of the areas of the world where, in your opinion, hockey is thriving or has the potential to really grow that might surprise us?
What? Okay, that could surprise you. Of course, you know the North American market. That's for sure. You have
Yeah.
Canada and USA are the two number of biggest countries already, and I think you know the better situation how the hockey is developing on those countries. But then when we go to, let's say, South American countries, they don't have too many ice rinks, but now actually there will be a new rink at Buenos Aires, and not a full
Oh
size, but
man.
a smaller size. So that we'll see how much they are able to then grow in the future. Thailand has been showing good results about developing, getting a number of rinks, number of players. Of course, then you have other big markets in Asia that it's growing and developing for sure, like China.
Yeah.
Korea has been growing, and there's other different countries too. So we have 83 countries, and if we compare all the numbers last summer and this, so 22, 23, actually we have been in the international wise, we have been able to grow the numbers with the athletes. So which is always a good signal. So
Got it. And so, like, China's interesting. I've spent a lot of time over there, and the games. I always remember, talking to people would say, "Man, the game's growing like crazy," and there was a big buzz. But then when you really step back and looked at it, and you said, "Gosh, like, there's just there's a fraction of the amount of players that we might have in, say, Vancouver. Like, as much as it's growing, it's still very, very small." Um, Outside of registration numbers, when you visit some of these developing hockey countries, what are you looking for, or what do you observe to maybe grade? I'm not sure if it's potential or growth opportunities, but how you just sort of grade, um, you know, how those initial few steps might be going.
I think the first thing what I want to know is about how their development programs are working and how those are structured. So let's say learn we call it learn to play. It's a base program, so basically get kids to play ice hockey and educate the coaching on the level. That's what I'm really interested because I think that's the number one thing. If you want to grow, you need to have the base,
Yeah.
and if you don't have the base, it's a bit harder to grow. It has a sustainable way. And then, of course, what I'm in my job, I'm interested to see also how the coaching education program is structured, who's running it. Is it the more government or university based or the federation based? So because
Yeah.
that varies also a lot. Then, of course, then the game officials, what we also need to know. So those are our three mandatory programs that we ask our countries to run it. And of course, if they want to participate on a women's program, as you said, it different championships, so then they have to have a women's development program too. So that's what I'm keen on, like how they are running the programs, and it doesn't mean that there has to be a full time person to run it. There's
Yeah.
most of the hockey is done volunteer base all around the world, so you just need to get those people to run it who has passion and who has a will to do it and who wants to really do the right thing.
So I know I saw a video. You were in Thailand last year doing a learn to play program, and the IIHF
Correct.
put out a really cool video, and part of it was the on ice. Looked like there was a lot of classroom stuff. There was some off ice stuff with the kids as well. But when you're kind of helicoptering in for a short period of time, you get a chance to connect with coaches. You get the chance to do these seminars. What would be like when it comes to learn to play specifically? What would be the one or two things that you hope stick with the coaches and people that are you face to face with the kids?
So my point of view, my number one thing is to get the people from the federations to come in. So that's our job to teach the people who overseas learn to play in the federation. So we educate them, and they will educate the local coaches on our clinic. So then
Got
we
it.
are able to make sure that those people actually learned what we taught, and then we are actually able to evaluate that were we able to teach them. And if we
Yeah.
weren't, then we had to change the system. But I think the number one thing when I go and see learn to play ice session is that kids are having fun, so they are active. Their drills are it looks like age appropriate. So you don't need to go to watch pro team practices and try to copy those drills for them because they're under 6, they're under 7, they're under 8. They don't have the capacity to do all those drills. So kids should be active, and then when kids are active and when they are trying their best, then you evaluate that they are having fun too. So it's a kids driven sport, so the coach should be coaching in the right way, so they are instructing, guiding, helping, providing that fun environment that the kids actually start to do something. And whenever you see that kids are not really trying or somebody has really pushed them, maybe the environment is not fun for the kids, maybe it's not age appropriate. So then we need to change something. So
So, with that in mind, like in terms of keeping it fun, like a couple weeks ago, I was down in Minnesota and got a chance to pick Bob Mancini's brain a fair bit, and heard his story about how a lot of the ADM model was developed just in him, working with his son at a young age and with his kids, and it was probably just a lot of iteration, finding challenges, finding solutions, getting new ideas, etc. Um, in terms of where we're at today, like I think we all appreciate small area games or station based practices seems to be, I think, the prescribed way to develop young kids who are just learning. But within that structure, for example, Bob mentioned his sort of rule of thumb was if for every three stations, two of them have to be just gameplay, and that was his rule of thumb. What might be some of your rules of thumb when it comes to how you administer a practice, set up the ice, to make sure that the kids are active and having fun?
I think that's a good rule. I think that it makes a lot of sense because at the end the kids have signed up playing hockey, not practicing hockey, and I think when we see all the studies about skill acquisition, we see that drills that are game related helps athletes in different stages to develop their game. So I don't know, is it the half of the drills? Is it the rule of three? I would say that maybe about half of the drills should be game related, and then other half should be also somehow active. But then and at the end it comes what is the main topic that you want to teach today. So again, that even though we are doing different things, there should be some sort of idea, theme, topic, goal of the day, goal of the some drills that actually what we want to emphasize today. So that comes down to that. Of course, I think if you have 50 or 60 kids on the ice, and if all the drills are coach instructing, trying to teach hands-on, then you find out that only one or two players, or maybe those five players out of 60 are active, and then the kids will get bored. And then when you're having different game-related drills or fun games, there might be a case that actually you give a name that I don't know what would be appropriate name. Let's say Aaron Blue Drill. So then the kids already know the name of the drill, and you just said, okay, that's the
Yeah.
drill today, and maybe you don't need to have a coach on that station if you don't have enough coaches. So the kids play and compete anyway when they're outside. They come up with their new games too outside, so or off the ice. So similar, I think, concept and principle also stays when you are running a practice.
I think that's such a great point that kids come up with their own games. I can't remember who told me. Somebody brought up with me the other day. He said, like, he's like, did you have a coach to teach you how to climb the monkey bars at school, or did you just figure it out? And I think that makes a bunch of sense. How important, like you mentioned, naming the drills, and I think like this is something we run into where coaches, I think, sometimes feel that pressure where you have to have like 100 drills at your disposal, or you never want to do the same drill in consecutive weeks. But when you're structuring those like a learn to play practice, any advice in terms of how many drills you have, naming the drills, adding efficiency, and do you need 100 drills, or can coaches get by on a small handful to guide them through the year?
I think you don't need for sure. You don't need 100 different drills because every drill you can modify it somehow. Let's
Yeah.
say the smaller a game, you just change a bit of the rule. Today, maybe with the older players, it's only one timers or uh, no passes. So whatever is the goal of today, so what you want to emphasize, you just emphasize a bit different things. So even though the drill is a bit different, but then the players will think different. So that's already a change. So I think if a coach who's running practice under eight, I think she or he is able to have, I don't know, 20 drills somehow feels a big number for the season because if you just modify all of them, you can have a lot of variations already. And I don't know how many kids are on the ice. If you have under eight, I think between 40 and 70 kids would be a good number to be on the ice. Then you make
Really?
sure that you have enough. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 40 kids. I've been running drills for under 15 with the 40 kids, and of course, then you need to use a lot of station-based game-like drills that they actually put in a lot of effort. But we had a few years back in our region when I was working with Piha in Finland. So yeah, the kids were tired after 50 minutes, and then we played 50 minutes just to see as a regional game. But they were tired, so it's not unnormal to have 40 plus kids on the ice
Wow.
when they're young. When they're young,
Just back up there. So you said they had 50 minutes of practice and 50 minutes a game. Was that in a day, or is that in a week?
so that was one of our regional models that we brought when I was working with Finland. So on that year we had it. We had to find out the players from the region to bring at our national camp. So we
Got it.
did it during the weekday. So then we just everybody had a maximum 90 minutes to drive in. So we had basically two times 50 minutes. So we practiced 50 minutes, smaller games, and then we played 50 minutes. So they had with the one drive, they had a basically two training sessions over there, so it doesn't. I think it's not meaningful to drive 90 minutes for 15 minutes ice session and then drive 90 minutes back. So whenever you need to use a car to go to the rink, so that should be then effective for everybody.
Got it. Got it. So, I'm coaching U7 this year, and I always find this interesting. So I've got one of the other coaches, or parent coaches we have, Katie Jones. She's awesome. So she played Division 1 hockey, and she's a kindergarten teacher. So best possible coach.
That's a great that
Yeah,
that's a great combination.
yeah, it is. And so she's like, why don't we play cops and robbers today? And I'm like, I don't know how to play cops and robbers. So it was a sort of a little game of tag. Kids, if they get tagged, they got to go in the net or the jail. Kids loved it. Although I will note, the first thing my son said when we got in the car after practice, he said, "What's a cop?" So I had to explain that. But what would be an example of like one of your go-to drills, at the learn to play level? When you mentioned, and maybe a game that you find kids really enjoy.
Last time when we saw the kids were really engaged, I think it was in Thailand. So we just would throw a bunch of different cones or that kind of things, and we were hiding pucks underneath. So then they had to actually had a competition, go and find the puck. So you had to go really down from, so you have the skating position, really dig it and go and pick up the puck. So even though we didn't practicing skating position, but the drill, you had to go down and really bend your knees. So they got really into it that in Thailand. So
Love that.
I could say.
What's that drill called?
Uh, I think you can call it with the culture. I don't know what was the term the Thai coaches were using it because they gave us a name.
Got it.
They gave the name because I don't remember because we had Thai coaches who were able to speak Thai to the players. So there were only one or two of those under 8 players that understood English.
Got it.
But we had a similar drill in Finland, and of course it was a finding a lion. So again,
Finding a line.
Finnish national Finnish national team jersey is a lion. So using this hockey culture in the country or in the community. So I think it's just about finding the right terminology with the kids that suits you over there. So I don't know what is Vancouver, what would be a great thing, find a Canuck or having the NHL team name or something like that.
Got it. Got it. Probably go with finding the bear here. I feel like that's appropriate here on the West Coast.
Eh,
Yeah. Um,
or getting a fish.
yeah. So give me the backstory on how you landed in this role. And it just occurred to me while we were, getting ready to hit record here. I mean, there's really like you're in this unique position where there's only one role like yours really in the whole sport. And so man, it's really unique. How did you land here?
So yeah, so how do I land here? I guess easy answer would be I got a phone call and people ask me am I interested about the position. So that would be that like the simple question. But so I have been working now last 14 months with the International Ice Hockey Federation and concentrating on the sport development. So not too much about development like rink development or business development, just concentrating on how we are able to help our federations to grow and develop their program. So that's my job at the end. So last 13 years I was working with the Finnish Ice Hockey Association as a youth hockey manager, so overseeing all the youth programs with my staff. So we had 10 people working in the region as regional coaches. And before that, I was one of the regional coaches. So that was my last 13 years. So basically working with youth development in Finland. Think about how we're able to help the clubs to be developed. How do we run the coaching education in the region and the whole of Finland? What are the main areas that we should focus on when we are running clinics with the players and the coaches? So that was my last 13 years. I have been privileged to live in different countries before. So I did my bachelor's in Finland for concentrating for ice hockey coaching.
Yeah.
Then I land. I did my internship in Hungary, so I went there to coach youth coaching, helping a bit the federation too and different activities, but mostly focusing with the club in Budapest. And I was actually lucky to go there because when you are plus 20 playing hockey, coaching hockey in Finland, you are living a bit in a bubble. I like a hockey bubble. So you know that you play against these bigger North American countries, European countries, but you don't really know. Maybe you're able to name 10 countries where do they play ice hockey. So for me, it was really good to go to Hungary because I didn't know on that time that there's ice hockey in Hungary. Of course, I had heard that somebody's coming from Hungary, but I didn't have a clue. So that actually taught me that I really have, what is meaningful and what are the areas that you should consider when you are going in a different culture where you don't speak the language, and then you need to coach. So you cannot just keep on talking when nobody understands. So that was really helpful for me to work with the Hungarian people. And there's still a lot of people that are still coaching there and working in the federation. So it's always good to see them. So that was really my game changer in the way that
Yeah.
going from the bigger hockey nation, smaller one, then figured out what is meaningful from my side. Then actually I lived before I started with Finland. I actually lived in Beijing in China for almost 6 months,
Wow.
getting understanding about that culture and how's hockey over there. And actually between my two jobs with Finland, I was actually living also in Colorado for half year in Aspen, so which was
Yeah.
a really great place to also learn something about American culture in Aspen or in the Rocky Mountains.
Well, I read about that, and I wanted to jump into that, but first, I'm just curious, like when you went to school, because you went to Vierumäki, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And just I want to make sure I get this right for anybody that's listening that's not familiar with Vierumäki. I don't believe it is a hockey specific university, but is it a coaching specific or sports coaching specific school?
So Vierumäki, it's a part of Haaga University, which is a bigger university, and they have different campuses in different cities in Finland. And Vierumäki is sport related.
God.
So basically, the bachelor study, I think it's a bachelor for sport and leisure management. But then my focus area was coaching, and because of we had a lot of people from ice hockey, and we had some formal Finnish national team coaches there as the principals there. So then it was really for me it was about ice hockey coaching, but we went through a lot of different sports, and actually then we had to do coaching or teaching in different sports too with our colleague coaches. But then we went to schools to practice. So then it was good to really explore different areas from different sports. So that was really good thing. So I did my bachelor's there. It's 3.5 year study, so basically 2 years at school, and then you have 1.5 years time to do your thesis and your internship. And then I did my master's later on in actually in the same campus. So when I was working with Finnish Ice Hockey Federation, that was a good thing to do. I had like, or was it all, not almost 10 years difference when I finished my bachelor and start my master. Not 10, but almost there. So that was actually good timing. So I was able to learn more about myself and getting more competence on different fields before finishing my masters. And originally, I have a education via masseur. So actually, then I learned a lot about human body and muscles and how the muscles are functioning and how do you actually then
No
recover.
kidding.
So that was
Wow.
actually that was a really good case study to practice and learning
Yeah.
being a masseur for 1 year. 1 year learning Latin about human body and human anatomy. So that was a really good base for being in the development area.
No kidding. So while you're doing all this education, is youth hockey or working with kids, is that your goal at the time, or did you have aspirations to maybe get into coaching professional hockey, or what were your ambitions early on?
I think whoever is educating to be a coach. They want to be the best coach in the world. So of course that's one of the goals.
Yeah.
I
Good
got
point.
I got a bit offended when my classmates were saying that maybe you would be a great coaching director versus coach. So I was a bit offended that on my way to my coaching career.
Yeah.
But then yeah, I was working with when I was studying, I was coaching with the kids who were about 12, 13 years. That was actually good. It was for me. It was good time to coach with the age group. So I they did some. They already knew something about hockey. They were able to skate, but of course, then you have to find different ways to help them out and help them to be better athletes. And that was a good place to practice your things that you're studying, and then you're coaching. So we were coaching about 3 4 times a week on those 2 years at Finland. And when I went to do my internship in Hungary, they want to put me with under 10 and under 12 teams. So of course, when I had a chance to go abroad, that's what I want to do it. But I really want to explore other cultures. So I was totally okay to have under 10s, under 12s. It was really good. I was helping with also with under 14s, under 18s. We didn't have a men's team on that club on those times. And then actually I was lucky to be participate whenever Hungarian men's national team was coming to Budapest. So then the
God.
federation was able to bring me in. So I was able to get to know the head coach of Hungarian team, Pat Cortina, and was a really helpful mentor to be, what to do with the national team program. So I was able to see different levels in Hungary, and I never tried to find a job for under 18, under 20s or men's team. I just somehow want to take some steps. So I was working a lot with the kids. So when I moved back from Hungary before I went to China, I was working with the kids were they were 13 or 14 in Kuopio
God.
where I was living also last 13 years. So then I ended up to be in China, and then I got the job with Finnish Federation. Then we were working with kids were 15, 16. So our job was in the region was to find that regional team that were the under 16 national team were picked up. And then we were also built with the national team program. So you were able to see also under 16, 17, 18 national teams. So that was a wide range of age group that I was lucky and privileged place to see and be.
Well, I want to go back to Hungary. This is interesting. So, we were obviously over at the World Championships this year in Tampere, and the first game we went to, I think it was, and I've got this video on my phone that I've shown, you know, all my pals, and it's Hungary's playing Sweden. At the end of the second period, I think the score is 7-1 Sweden. I think the shots at that stage are like 42-6. And there's a video of the Hungarian fans, and it's literally an entire, like a massive section. Like there's several, probably 1,000. They all have the jerseys on, and they're chanting and singing like they're minutes away from winning a gold medal. Like the passion for it was awesome. It was so cool. And I remember thinking, like, I'm like, man, and we talked with some of the coaches there from Hungary, and what we learned is that the government is really investing in the sport of hockey. Um, my impression was they're going about it the right way and recognizing that you need to start at the grassroots levels, as you alluded to. But in a scenario like that, Kalle, how long, if a country decides today that they want to be really competitive in ice hockey, and I know Germany sort of went through a bit of a process, in preparing for the 2026 Olympics and mapping all that out. But how long realistically does it take a country to say, today we're going to get really good at ice hockey until they can reasonably expect to be competitive?
So I went to Hungary. It was 2005, and I was working in Budapest. And if I remember correct, on 2005 there was about Budapest and surroundings. So Budapest is the capital of Hungary.
Yeah.
I think there were 5 clubs that had a youth program. And now, if I'm correct, and maybe maybe somebody will give you a call and say that's a wrong number. But if I would say now in Budapest and surroundings, you have 20 youth clubs.
Wow.
So it
Okay.
has grown a lot, almost in 20 years. So I don't know all the steps what was taken before I went there, but I remember the federation hooked up with McDonald's on that time to promote youth hockey. And of course, that was a bit strange for me why McDonald's, but then of course people go there, people see ice hockey, so they were able to promote the game
Mm,
throughout that.
smart.
And then some step, I think they were doing the right thing. They were getting more and more players involved, more kids, more families interested. Then the government started to also support the programs. So I think part of that is that when government start to support something, you have to do something right. And now they even few years back they got even more support from the government. So I think now if you're saying that almost 20 years later when I was there, now they are between the highest division and the second highest division. So now competing back and forth, which is a great thing. So I don't know when Hungarian journey started, but I think realistic you could say maybe it takes 20 years, maybe it takes 30 years or 40 years. So
Yeah.
it all comes down also the financial situation because with ice hockey, if you want to play on the ice, you need ice. So then you need the facilities. So we have countries that they have been able to build the small rink. So introducing ice hockey, introducing skating, then they're getting more and more people involved with the game. And then suddenly the community or the city got interested and they're getting a bigger rink. And now you get a small rink, bigger rink, and able to grow. So that's why we are asking our countries to have programs in place. So whenever they get the ice, they know what to do with the people who come and try the game, who come and try skating or who come and try and playing. So you need to be ready when the time comes. And that's one of the reasons why we ask to have programs in place and also the ice rink. So it takes some time for sure. If somebody decides build 20 rinks tomorrow
Yeah.
and start to recruit, so maybe it would be a faster. But of course, there would be maybe a sportive culture where it would be even faster. So I think really depends on the country and the situation and the culture over there. But it takes some time, so it's not done in a day.
Yeah.
It's not done in a year. Like if you think about now, kids are starting to play when they're 6, 7, 8. It's already when they're 18. It takes 10, 12 years for them. So that's also only a single player. And then if you think of it, having a successful ice hockey program in the country, so that we understand it takes even more.
Got it. So you mentioned sort of the cultural aspects, and again, just going back to our trip to Finland last spring, like there was a real emphasis on, call it, the coach player relationship. It seemed, and how you lead, how you relate, not just to professional players, but obviously how you relate to young kids versus adult. Like that's just going to be, it's going to be different. I imagine it's a very much a different skill set. I'm curious, when you went to, say, China, and this is just my own experience. When I spent time over there, like some of the things that came up were, there was a belief that the kids shouldn't have water on the ice. They didn't want the kids to have water bottles, so that was something early on we tried to change. Or maybe how they disciplined kids that maybe weren't listening. And I'm talking really young ages. Like it seemed, coming from Canada, it was eye opening, to say the least. And I
Mm.
remember thinking, like, well, culturally that might be accepted there, that if we want to grow the game, to your point, we want to create a more fun type environment for the kids, so that passion and that love for the sport is what ultimately is going to carry them through, and hopefully turn them into lifelong players and fans of the sport. How much of your role is focused on that when you're going to different countries, and maybe either adapting to the culture, or maybe helping adapt their culture to creating um, a more welcoming environment on the ice?
Yeah, of course. Whenever you go one country, you need to understand a bit of the culture. Of course, you
Yeah.
don't. don't understand everything, because unless you live there or you have a relationship there. I think one thing for us is to show that what you learn when you're enjoying that, it's a long lasting. And then if you try to do something when there's a fear involvement there, that you actually that fear of making mistakes, we need to show that maybe the performance is not better. One of my old friends were using a metaphor that when you're trying to learn a piano, and if the teacher is over there on the side, putting shutting down the piano into your fingers, so that's
Yeah.
not the best place to perform. So because kids are always they always listen to coach. That
Yeah. That's a
like
good point.
coaches are it's already authority for them. And if it's fun to go over the coaches, maybe you're able to get your message through. But if you're going there with the fear that something bad gonna happen, then the kids are not coming to you. So that's why building that positive learning environment it plays a really big role. Whenever you ask somebody who was the best coach in your life, even if you were a pro player or you didn't play long, but usually those are the coaches who set the friendly climate for
Yeah.
you to be yourself and learn. So usually it's about those who understand what is what is the good sport culture, what is a safe environment to learn. And that's what we try to explain and educate and teach, and like what how the sport culture and environment should be in different ages.
Yeah. No, and it makes so much sense, but it's man, it's tough. Like working with young kids. I always say, man, if you have a coach that's their cozy spot is working with young kids, man, hang on to them, because it's you can be the most experienced coach in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your experience is going to translate with those younger age groups. And I'm just curious with that in mind. Like another thing that really stood out to me when we were over in Finland is traditionally here in North America, when kids learn to play the game, they're most likely learning it from volunteer parents. Whereas in Finland, it almost seemed like clubs were taking their best coaches and putting them in front of kids at a young age to ensure that that environment was the best it could possibly be before they passed them on. It just seemed like there was a lot more of an emphasis on that learn to play level, and it's important. Is that a fair assessment?
Kind of. So we have in Finland. There's a lot of like I think every country has a lot of volunteers. That's for
Yeah,
sure. And youth hockey is based on volunteers. Finnish system is, and it was when I was there, so that the club usually had, I don't know, one, two, three, maybe four full-time people,
got it.
and their job was to oversee different age groups and educate the coaches. So basically, you had a person maybe with the Lion Hockey School. That's the name of Learn to Play in Finland. It's a Lion Hockey School. Maybe that person was responsible for the Lion Hockey School, and then the next age group there was somebody who's taking care of the under 12s, under 14s, and so on. So making sure that there's a person from the club who's full time, who's educated, understand what is age appropriate, and is able to help the coaches, because that single club person cannot be in every single game or practice at the rink, but the coaches will be. And
Yeah,
then think about that. So what really matters is that how that everyday practice session looks like, how that every environment then is. So basically helping the coaches to be better, and if the coaches are able to build a better learning environment, so I think then the athletes will have a better place to be developed.
got it. And Finland's interesting because I mean I don't know if you necessarily recognize how the rest of the hockey world views Finland, but it's really remarkable when you look at the data. And I mean, just an example, when you look at the population of the country, the number of players that you have, it very closely resembles what we might have here in the province of British Columbia or say Alberta. I don't think either of those provinces, if they had to submit a national team to an international competition, that they'd fare that well. but in Finland, you managed to win gold medals. What about what you're doing at those learn to play younger levels? I mean, you talk about things like fun and just keeping kids active, and it doesn't seem like it seems like it's very much focused on individual player development versus winning or any kind of team success. What philosophy at those young level shows up, with the Lions and the national team?
I think the one thing that it's about the fun learning environment is to make sure that nobody quits hockey. So therefore, kind of like if the city has 50 kids to play ice hockey, the club job is to make sure that everybody has a team to play. They might practice in the same ice session, then the club divide the players in different teams. They might be in the same level, depends on age group, or if for some reasoning that one team has to be a bit better, when they are 14, they make one better team, and maybe the other two teams are not in the same level, but most likely to make sure that everybody is staying involved in the game. I think that's number one thing. So the retention number stays high, so that nobody will quit because somebody says that you are not good enough when they're 11. Because nobody knows how good that player could be when he's or she is 15 or 16.
Exactly. Yeah.
So make sure that everybody stays involved. So then, whenever the national program starts when they're 16, it's always easier to pick up from the existing players. That if you only would have 5 players to pick up a team. So making sure that the pyramid is really wide when you go up, and hopefully it won't go too narrow too soon. I think that's one of the biggest things. Finland, there was a lot of discussion about should we or should Finland follow the same way like USA Hockey is having a team in Michigan, having the best players over there. Well, then for our culture, our system, it was better to invest that our people from the national teams actually went to help the clubs or provide the feedback. So that's working good in our system. And I was using USA Hockey as an example, and for them, the best system is what they have over there. I think every country is implementing their own ways of doing things, depends on the culture and system, and I think everybody's trying to find the way what is best for each individuals. And now in Finland, having 5 million, 5.5 million people living there, of course, you need to drive a bit in European size the distance, but anyway, you're able to bring the people together in a certain time, at least in the region.
Got it. I think that's great. That's great. Um, One of the I think things that you get to do in your role is you get to connect with a lot of people in similar roles in other sports. And I know that you're going to be traveling over. I think it's to Singapore early December for a global sports conference. What are when you go to those types of events, or you have the opportunity to speak to somebody that's in your role in another sport? What type of information are you trying to maybe pull from them that can help you in your role?
Uh, I've been now 14 months in the job, so I'm in the States and I just try to get connect with the
Yeah.
people. So I got to know them, they got to know me, and then making sure that the line is open whenever I need some information out of it. So let's say if I would now we are building a coaching education framework for our countries to make sure that everybody has are able to use the tool. So now let's say that with that work, if I found out that I might call football or soccer or football association or basketball or something like that to get some help, my job is to make sure that the line is open so they know who's contacting them, and we met on those seminars. So at this point I'm just making sure that I have connections with different sport and different organizations. In the hockey world, it's of course we are able to work a lot with different federations, people who are in the development
Yeah.
job in our federations. So that's already that we are able to do a lot of things together. One thing was that we started last spring a program for people who overseas development in their country. So we did the 1 year clinic. So it's still going on. We do a bit of on-site training weeks and online webinars. And I'm using a lot of our people from ice hockey federations to present and educate them from the area that they're really good at. So basically, I'm able to find resources throughout that.
Got it. And is there any? let me put it this way: if there was a coach or somebody in your role from a different sport, is there maybe a particular person you'd love to have dinner with and pick their ear, or sorry, pick their brain, and or maybe a specific sport that you feel that hockey could, that maybe translates well to hockey, or hockey could pull a lot from?
It's hard to pick up one name. I think there's a lot of great people in different
Yeah.
sport coaching or developing. So it would be really hard to say who would I pick up for dinner. So if I would be going different countries, I would love to go dinner with any of those people. So I think it's about learning from really different people and different individuals, and you're always able to learn and pick up something. So I won't shoot the name now. So if I'm coming to Vancouver, so hopefully I will have a dinner with you. So I'll learn something
Well, let's hope you learn something.
something from you. And
Cops and robbers. I
yeah, I
already
will
gave
for
away
sure.
my best tip was cops and robbers.
Uh,
Um, so what does the year look like for you? And I know that you've done a little bit of traveling already, but like over the course of the season, can you maybe shed some light on where you're going to, and maybe like what are your, just specifically in a role, what are your objectives short term over the course of, say, this next season?
this season, we just I started my after my summer holidays. I went to Uzbekistan and Korea. So we had our developer program there on site weeks, and of course then we organized together with Olympic Council of Asia ice hockey player developing camp in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. So we had a camp there and education program there. So that kept me already busy. And then from there, I went to Korea. So we have the M&A developer program on-site week there. And why we went to Korea is because Korean Federation is organizing every August hockey together camps. So they bring also different countries there. So utilizing these existing events when we go somewhere. So that was my first almost 3 weeks traveling after summer holidays. And now some upcoming events that are coming in the fall, we do actually this learn to play. We were in Asia last year, and now we actually have one in Europe. We are concentrating for our North African countries and European countries to bring in. That
Yeah.
will be in Croatia. And then, as you mentioned, I'm going to Singapore with the ICC and the coaching symposium just to connect and see the latest knowledge about coaching. Then this year will be a Youth Olympic Games in Korea. So there will be on some 3-on-3 ice hockey and 5-on-5 ice hockey for under 16. So gonna have how many national teams? There will be 12 plus 16. So that's 27, 28. I think 27 because Korea is having one team in 3-on-3 and one on 5-on-5. So as a hosting country, so that will be a bit of longer trip in January. And of course, we do a lot of different smaller seminars. So whenever a country is hosting world championships, and there's about 30, 40 events every year. So it's a different categories, different levels, world championships, men's, women's under 18, of course, world juniors like men under 20s, and then men under 18. So you already have a 30, 40 different events in the season. So then we usually want that the hosting country does some sort of development event in the country when they
Got
are
it.
hosting. So now we are targeting 15 different places this season. Hopefully, we're able to have using 15 different championships to have either it's a coaching related, game official related, gender equality, integrity based, but somehow to bring people together from the country and provide something for them. It could be just a workshop that you bring people from your country together, think about, okay, what should we do together, take some next steps. So those will be the different locations.
And so when, let's say, let's get to April, when you look back on this year, what does your scorecard look like? How do you evaluate if you accomplished what you hope to accomplish?
I'm basically scoring like, do we reach our countries or how many countries are now participating in our clinics? So let's say just learn to play clinics. We are checking out how many players the countries are having. What is the trend? Are we going down or are we going up globally? It's good that we are increasing a bit. That's number one thing. We have our strategy ICE 26, so it's an international strategy to develop or build ice hockey. And of course, even though it's a people call it the IIHF strategy, but I think if we want to be really successful, we need all the countries to be part of it. So then we have different steps over there what we want to achieve, and there's a few of those initiatives are also that I'm concerning or are more focusing on. And one of the steps are there like that we were able to start this program to educate people who oversees the development, and hopefully I'm able to see 40 different development plans next spring when we finish the program. So a lot of different initiatives.
Yeah,
So myself, I might not go too many our World Championships events for the whole duration time, but if we have a seminar or development event there, so I might go there for a few days just to work with the people who are there. So I haven't really yet decided which are the logs I will go because now we are just putting together the plan and countries. Everybody's saying that they are ready to host something, and now we just put the plan together and what are topics with them. So of course, if there's it's an integrity theme, so then we have our integrity or our legal department who's running our integrity topics, so they would take more responsible on that. And if somebody wants to do, let's say, a marketing type of thing, so then we just talk with our marketing department. So it's not always that we do only for the coaches or we do only with the game officials. So it really depends on the needs of the country. That what is the most meaningful thing? Of course, we have our own thought
yeah,
what they should do, but then if our thought and their needs doesn't really goes together, it
sure.
might be useless to push it too much. So then about more guiding and helping, and if they want to do something, and even though I wouldn't agree, I just okay, let's do what you want to do because then you have your motivation there to run it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I just think that's probably really just a good lesson, not just for kind of the scenarios that you're expressing, but I think just as in coaching in general, I think sometimes it's really easy that you come with an agenda and you want to push exactly, but sometimes when you're asking players or the other coaches you're working with and just finding out how you can best serve them, that's really great advice. We touched on you had a bit of a sabbatical early on in your career where you came to Aspen, Colorado. I'll just note, incredibly convenient that of all the places you could have visited, you landed in Aspen, Colorado. I want to take a sabbatical there. But in that environment, when you show up, and obviously you're there for, in this case, a bit of an extended period of time, where do you start um, to maybe assess where you can bring value and just overall, like what was that experience like? Because I imagine I just obviously for yourself, I'm sure it was a great learning experience, and obviously for the coaches that you were working with, I'm sure a great learning experience as well.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed that half year that I was there. Somebody could say sabbatical. How do the word you were using? But that was a lot of work, lot of work over there. So it's I would say that would if I was saying that I came from a Finnish ice hockey bubble, so then Aspen is it's a bit further away. So it's like it's really on community. I think one of the best things again was the people over there. So they're really supporting each other. It's a community based and really try to do things together. Having different events, community based charity events. So that was really good to see that when there was a game, actually people came to see the rink and they were supporting and proud of the logo in Aspen Junior Hockey. So that was really nice to see. It was really good to learn about how strong the winning is in American culture, or at least let's say in that city, like how passionate it's about
I think that's North American
who's gonna
culture is
win.
probably a fair way to put it. Yeah,
Okay, so then it's about did the team win or lose,
yeah,
and of course it's always fun to win than lose. Let's say when we're talking about under 10 or 12s, If you lost the game, you lost the game, but there's always a new game. What we did change at the beginning, I was talking with the executive director because that was his idea that they contact the USA Hockey a bit before, and they said that they would like to do something else. So they were able to get some extra funding from the community, and they said they would like to do something else. And then USA Hockey contacted me that would I be able to do it to spend some time in a season in Aspen, and I was that was really interesting for me, and I was able to convince my wife and also my employee that that's a good thing to do, and that was really good thing to do, and we went there. So when I got there, I think it was early October-ish.
Yeah.
So the season wasn't started yet. So there was a tryout season. And then I was a bit asking about why do we have the tryouts? Like, what do we do with the players who not qualified the team? So are they sending somewhere else? So then we were able to keep all the kids involved. But the explanation was that, let's say, Bandam, that we need to have two teams, and because of the rules, you have to create those teams. Okay, if that's the rule, that's the rule.
Yeah.
But then what we changed there that our teams were practicing together. So basically, if you had a PVA, PVB, they practice together. So they 99% of the practice they skate together. So then some of the drills we did it together, some maybe station based. Really depends what did we try to achieve on that one drill or 1 week. So again, basically that was a deviation. And because of course some because and also one reason why did we skate together with 30 or 40 kids was that somebody was always missing. They were skiing over there or did some other holidays or uh, schoolwork or you got ill, so
Sure.
you didn't always have the normal team. So instead of having a 13 skater size, so it was always good to have two teams on the ice together, so that we were able to plan the week, so the kids got enough ice times. We start to implement off-ice training prior to practice or after the practice.
No
So
way.
just the basic things in the stands. So learning to how to make a somersault. So basically athletic skills. So then you were able to implement in other sports. So we kept that as a volunteer base at the beginning. Not we didn't get too many kids over there, but then they actually saw that what we were doing. They got more into it, and we were able to start a culture over there. Then we found out that there was one father who was a wrestling coach, so we were asking him to come over. So then you were able to
No
use
way.
those people from the parents to that who are doing already off ice training. So that was one of the things that we started to do it over there. So that was really great 6 month. And then of course a personal thing, I really like to ski, so that's not a bad place to ski either. So
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard it's a pretty good ski spot. Um, that's awesome. I just out of curiosity, total aside, have you seen the movie Dumb and Dumber? Did you see that?
yes, and we spent the first night in Breckenridge where I was told the movie was filmed. So it wasn't filmed in Aspen, it was in Breckenridge. So that was
Got it.
I got the story. So the first night I went to Colorado, we tried to Denver to Breckenridge because I think our the midget team had a tournament over there, so I was able to watch some hockey in Breckenridge.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So
Well,
yeah,
I love that. I mean, just the bit about the off ice training. I think that's fantastic. I think just one of my big takeaways is just the emphasis on getting lots of kids on the ice, maximizing that ice time, and I know again, I'm just personally like I'm on the ice with 48 5, 6 year olds this year, and it's at the start, man, at the beginning of September, it scared the bejesus out of me. Like I didn't know where to turn. It was overwhelming, but good to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That this is manageable. Um, Callie,
it is. Just remember keep your helmet on.
yeah, because yeah, that's a big thing is when we bring them in, there's no sliding because man, we're waiting for somebody to go down. Um, just as we close here, I'd be curious. Let's fast forward to the 2050 World Championships. Um, what countries might you predict are going to be in Group A that aren't today and might surprise us?
Well, that's a tricky one because at 2050, so it's 30 years from
Yeah.
now, so it can be anything. So if I'm able to help all the countries, so everybody are competing. But of course, I somehow believe that these top countries will be there.
Yeah.
Never know, never know. You know, we have been seen from different sports, and somehow the culture just drops down. Hopefully, that it doesn't work. Hopefully, we have who do we have coming? I okay, who's the world ranking countries are coming there? But oh boy, I think everybody who's now in our division A could be there.
Yeah.
So it's the second highest league. I think anybody could could be playing there. Maybe there would be somebody also from Division B because against 30 years there's existing culture. Those ones who are making sure that the learn to play is working, so they get a lot of kids to try hockey and stay with the sport. I think they will do the best job. We are talking about the Hungary 20 years ago. Now they are increasing the whole time, so they are getting a lot of players. So if we are having countries that are able to increase the numbers, I think that's always helpful. So unless there's a dramatic decreasing in one of the countries, that might also then be a negative effect on that. But again, we have Slovenia that don't have too many players at the moment or at the end, or not too many rings or
Yeah.
clubs, but then they're still competing in Olympic games.
Yeah.
So again, that it's really hard to say who there. I think a lot of countries have a chance, and now working with the IF, and I also want to be a politic how do you say it? I want to be a neutral and say that everybody has a chance if they do their homework.
Well, you know what? I think what's great about the job that you have, Callie. I mean, there's this the sports side, and that's great, and it's great to see our game growing because everybody listening here, we love it, we're passionate about it, but I think the underlying side of that is just seeing how internationally our game brings people together and connects people from different cultures, and I think that there's just a lot of value that the game creates just purely in that respect, and it's I think it's really really important. So, and like I said, I think you've got just a really unique and very cool job. Just curious as we close here, a lot of coaches listening. Any additional tips or advice you would pass along?
I think for the coaches, the number one thing is be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. Be yourself. That's okay. I think that's number one thing. So if you're a bit goofy, be goofy, or if you're more strict, be strict. So just I think everybody should be yourself because even whenever be yourself, you're able to express yourself. And I think at the end, whether you are with the communication skill or like communicating with people, whether you're able to get your message through. Because if I would have all the knowledge in my head, but I wouldn't bring it out, it really wouldn't matter how much I know. So I think that's number one thing, and I think there's a great study about what is fun, trying your best on those elements. So just understanding that if you're able to teach something with a joy, that will be more long lasting. So how to make the drill or exercise or the season fun or joyful and using that as a learning environment. So I think that would be really crucial thing to understand.
Love it, man. That's great. That's great. Listen, Callie, really appreciate joining us today. We know you're busy. We know seems like you're constantly in transit somewhere, and yeah, I think some just great takeaways here, and hopefully we can catch up down the road.
That would be really good. Thank you, Adam.